Hey guys, welcome back to another news bit thing. I promise I will find a title for this someday. But yeah, welcome back to another episode. Before we get started, I just want to uh lay out the groundwork because I'm currently not how should I say it? I'm a little ill. I have a headache right now. Just kind of meh today. Not like emotionally, just physically. Um, it was a great lesson last night for me to not be interacting with people because I decided to go hang out with a couple of my friends. A couple meaning like two to three people. Um, and I made sure that had hand sanitizer, made sure they had their mask on. I had my mask on the whole time. Um, And towards the end of the night, for some reason or another, I got like um, a bit. Uh, my nose started to get very like all this like gooey and stuff. And some of the case, sometimes it's mainly due to the mask. So I was probably thinking like maybe not wear that mask because the texture maybe is not great. Um, I have it right here actually. I can get it right now. Um, it's the Brixton mask. I don't know if you guys can see the logo, but the Brixton mask. Um, it's a great mask to wear for like I would say a couple of minutes. Like if you're just going somewhere for a brief second, it's actually quite a good mask to wear. But for like long term, because I was out with them for like 3 or 4 hours, and I wore the mask like 100%, so I didn't take it off at any point. The only time I would is that if I needed to like brush off any sticky gooey stuff, and I had to go some distance obviously, um, but by the time I got home, I was very pale, as you can probably tell, and my temperature it wasn't like high. I mean, it was like 99. It's still around there right now, um, but I'm in kind of a funk. I'll just put it that way, just a little bit of a funk. No COVID, obviously, it's nothing like that, but just a little bit of a funk. And I'm still feeling it like right now a little bit. Not as bad as last night, but still, you know, still a little bit of a funky feeling. Um, but it's a great lesson to, to take this stuff a little bit more seriously. So, um, just to rephrase it, I have been serious about it, but not as serious as I should have been when interacting with other people. So if you could see that I'm a little pale, or if you could tell that, you know, maybe if I'm like scratching my head like this and that, just note that I have a headache and I'm just in a bit of a funk. Nothing COVID related, I promise. Um, but yeah, just uh, just a little bit wonky today. So, but that will not stop me from doing these news topics because that's where I get my joy from, is doing videos like this and talking about subjects like this. Um, and we've got a shit ton of stuff to talk about today. There's a lot of stuff that happened within the past few days that I would love to talk to you guys about. So it's going to be a pretty long episode. My best of 2020 list finally is online. So for anybody who wants to watch that, that's now available. The worst of 2020 list will come out, I'm going to say like 2 or 3 days after this video is publicized, because this is going to be a long, long video. And I don't want to like cram like another 45-minute video after, like a hour long video it was just released. So that video will probably come out, um, give or take, hopefully on the 10th or so. I know on the 10th I said a review. I'm probably gonna have to push that back a little bit. So some things are gonna get pushed around a little bit just because, you know, um, just because news stuff like this happens. So, and also just because, you know, I'm currently in a funk. So I'm not, you know, not able to do much right now. So, um, but um, I obviously want to talk about this stuff with you guys. So let's get into it. I'm gonna talk about the first thing um, that everyone was talking about for the past few days. I addressed it briefly when I filmed the worst of 2020. So if you notice, like if I bring that up in the worst of 2020 video, just note that I filmed that earlier. I'm filming this later. Um, But the first topic we're going to talk about is the Michael Keaton Batman thing that was running around for a little bit. People were putting up headlines saying like, "Oh my God, Michael Keaton's going to be the new Batman. He's going to be the new DCU Batman." And my friend sent me a post about it, and I was like, "What?" That seemed a little weird. And then I did my research on it before it blew up on the internet. Um, and at that point, I was like, okay, somebody obviously just misunderstood what that quote was, because if you trace back the source, it's basically about the author was of the article of where he interviewed Walter Hamada, where he like unveiled a bunch about the DC franchise, the two Batman franchises. He Someone online had asked for clarification in regards to that other Batman franchise that was addressed, and they asked like, is it involving Keaton? And all that the author had said on Twitter was literally just says Keaton, and everyone ran with the headline saying that Keaton's going to be the new Batman. Um, and At the time, I was like, maybe. I mean, because again, it was just one word, so you can interpret it in many ways you can. But then again, it's like, why is that not on the article to begin with? If that is in fact the story. Um, well, now he's come out and said no, Michael Keaton is not the new Batman. So as I suspected earlier, he's not the new Batman. He is only going to be cameoing, or at least a supporting role, from what it sounds like, in the Flash. So, which we'll talk about the Flash in a little bit here. But um, but yes, the idea of Michael Keaton being the new Batman, 'cause that's pretty much the reason why I'm bringing up the topic, um, is how would I have felt if that was real? How would I have felt if Michael Keaton was the new Batman? Like, how would I have felt about that? Um, a part of me would have been excited because I loved the first two Batman movies that he was in. I really enjoyed 1989's Batman. Yes, I think Batman Returns is a better film than the original Batman. I think it's more cohesive and a lot more fleshed out than the original Batman. Um, but the consistent thing I liked about those two was Michael Keaton. I really liked Michael Keaton as Batman. Um, Even though he's a bit stoic and he's a little bit of an oddball, it kind of plays to his character a lot. And I liked those traits quite a bit. Um, and of course, the villains were just great: Jack Nicholson, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer. And then you get to the Schumacher era, and that was quite an interesting turn of events, to say the least. But um, but the idea of Michael Keaton being the new Batman, I think that's exciting. If it was for one movie, I mean, my one thing that I've always kind of disliked about Batman Returns was that was it for Michael Keaton, that he never got his last shot, because Batman Forever, just to summarize some history about it, Michael Keaton was supposed to come back to do the third film, and Tim Burton supposedly was supposed to come back to direct it. But WB was going on a different direction for the Batman franchise. They wanted it to be much more lighthearted. They wanted because if you know about the whole Batman Returns marketing strategy that they did for that film, it did not go well for kids, to say the least. Mainly with Danny DeVito as Penguin, but so they decided to change course, and that's how we ended up getting Schumacher in. And once Schumacher came into the picture and the script was finally released for, or not released, but sent out to Keaton and the other people, that's when Keaton decided to step down from the idea. If you find quotes from it, he basically just says flat out loud, it's like it was shit, dude. The idea was shit. Um, so yeah. So the idea of like kind of getting a conclusion to that story is kind of awesome in my particular opinion, especially wondering what the talent that they get for it as well. But the other part of my brain also states thinks that that's not the direction that they're going to go in. They're obviously looking for another Batman for the next like 5 or 6 years to coexist with Robert Pattinson's Batman, or at least be in the same time of releasing as Robert Pattinson's Batman. And in that, I don't think Michael Keaton is a great choice, because Keaton is great for one time. That's just my personal opinion. If you're gonna bring Michael Keaton's Batman back, do it for one time. And in my particular opinion, it should be for a conclusion for that particular story, not just a cameo for the Flash, because that's exciting. And I'm pretty sure it's a cameo because they're promoting like concept art and stuff. I mean, I hope he's like fills out the Thomas Wayne role of that particular story. I hope that that's the case. Um, but it seems more or less it's going to be like, I would say like a 10-minute appearance or something. Um, but um, but I personally would want him to come back for one more film. That's just me. I think that it'd be really fascinating to see it concluded, and I think people would still watch it. You know, a lot of people um, come to films not just for the narrative purposes and for the stars. They also come for the nostalgic factor in many cases. And I think that doing a sequel to Batman Returns with Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, you could throw in some other characters in there. Billy D. Williams was supposed to be a Two-Face for the original Tim Burton franchise. I mean, all those elements are still here and present. Why not conclude it? I think that also it's bankable. You know, Keaton's a recognizable name, Michelle Pfeiffer's a recognizable name. It's not like they just went under. They are still very recognizable actors. And Tim Burton, I think, it would be a kind of like a resurgence for Tim Burton. So I think all the elements are there. But for some reason or another, they just don't want to go that path. They'd rather do a different path for Michael Keaton's Batman, which is a cameo, which I'm cool with. But again, if it's not one film, I say don't do the new Batman, which they're not. But if they were, I would have been fairly concerned because it's like, I don't know how you can keep that storyline consistent for another 6 years. That story requires one more film. And I wish that that's how they were using Keaton in this new DC plan. Not just for nostalgia bait, which is the reason why they're doing the Flash, putting him in the Flash. But basically, to sum up my thoughts on the Michael Keaton idea, I am happy that it's not happening because I just don't see that being a consistently good factor for 5 years for a new Batman franchise. But I'm also sad because I wish that DC's direction for using Keaton in the DC universe moving forward would have been for one more film, not just for a cameo. That's just my personal opinion. But you know, we'll see him in the Flash though, so that's cool. All right, so off to our next topic, because we just covered Keaton. Let's talk about Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele, this one kind of went under the radar. Not a lot of people are talking about it because I think they still think it's a joke. But apparently he is serious about it. Jordan Peele, at least, I'm going to put a question mark in my description box because even I have some doubts, even though he seems serious about it. Jordan Peele looks to be retiring from acting. Now, IndieWire had put out an article about it, and where I guess he was having like a Get Out reunion or something, and he was talking to like Bradley Whitford, who was also in Get Out. He had said this about his acting career, and he said this about it to Bradley. He said, quote, he said, "I like watching my movies. I can watch the films I direct, but watching me perform just feels like a bad kind of masturbatory." Interesting, and I love the word that he used. He goes on to say, "It's masturbation you don't enjoy. I feel like I got to do so much, and it is a great feeling. When I think about those great moments when you're basking in something you said that feels funny. When I think about all that, I think I got enough." Um, so he seems rather tired of doing acting, at least from what it sounds like. But it's not a hard no. It's not a hard like no, I'm not going to do acting anymore. It doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems more or less of like he's kind of getting tired of it. Like he's going to slow down doing it and focus more on other aspects of his life that he likes doing, as more or less being a filmmaker, um, which we said at the which we said or talked about in the last episode with Michael B. Jordan, where a lot of actors, or some actors, I should rephrase it, actually want to be filmmakers at first. That's actually was their first love, their first passion. And Jordan Peele, at least from this article, and just from the quality of work that he's been producing, um, he clearly wants to be a filmmaker, um, and I don't envy him. I mean, follow your dreams. That's great. Um, but I don't firmly believe that he's done with acting. I think he has a couple of films coming out next year, if I'm not mistaken, or this year. Sorry, I keep forgetting it's 2021. Um, and I I just don't believe it. I just think he's going to slow down. I think that that's what he means, because I think he wants to focus more as a filmmaker. He has his own production company now, I believe. He's producing a lot of films now, and he has I believe he has a two-picture deal with Universal, if I'm not mistaken. I think he has like two films that he's working on, or at least he has like a two-picture deal, or some deal that he did with Universal. Someone fact check me on that. Um, but yeah, it's not super surprising, considering where Jordan Peele's direction has been going with his career. He's been very focused on filmmaking. He did Get Out, which I have to say I'm not the biggest Get Out fan. I'm not. I liked it a lot. I think that there was an interesting story to be had there, and I think that the comedic flavors that it had ingrained into it helped it in some ways. But I also felt that um, it wasn't as impactful that I wanted it to be, and not as clever. I think that the idea of like the twists that they present, I won't spoil it for anybody who has not seen Get Out, but the twist um, that they present in the story about Bradley Whitford's and the households in general with their particular characters, um, it's just not as it's just not as attainable or impactful as it could have been, just because I just don't think the idea really works. It just feels kind of out of left field. Like we're in this very, we have a particular tone and style that we have for the first like hour and a half, and then I believe it's like 2 hours, right? Just so I get my math right, because I believe it was like, okay, yeah, it was like an hour and 40. So it was like, so let me phrase it. I meant like the first like 40 so minutes, like until, basically until they get to the party, where the title of the film comes in. Um, up to that point and further beyond that point, I was actually quite invested. I thought, okay, this is actually interesting. I like that there's a really weird tone, weird mystery going on in the house. What's up with these people? I like that. Then they present the twist, and I don't like the twist. I think it kind of ruins a lot of the suspense that I had at the beginning, and I just don't like the idea of it. Um, but I thought Jordan Peele helmed it fairly well. I thought it had some really clever writing. I thought Daniel Kaluuya was fairly good in it. I just didn't like the way it revealed itself to the audience. I didn't like it. Um, but then he did Us, and I actually think Us. I have to rewatch Get Out just to maybe to see where my head's at. But I think Us is personally a better film, because I like the idea that Jordan Peele presents a lot more than Get Out. I like the idea of like fighting yourself, and the mystery of who's who, and the I think that the it's just more involved. It's more involved, and it's a lot more inviting than I would say Get Out is. And I also like the score. Um, I think Peele also, in terms of a director, I think had a better helm on Us than Get Out did, because Get Out's greatest strength is screenplay, which surprisingly well, not surprisingly, but coincidentally ended up winning its Oscar for best screenplay. Um, And then Us's greatest strength is direction, in my particular opinion. And Lupita Nyong'o was really good in that film, by the way. Um, but and he's also now going to be producing the new Candyman film, which is coming out this year, with future Captain Marvel 2 director Nia DaCosta. And then he's producing a lot of other horror films and shit. Um, he has the Twilight Zone, obviously, the rebooted Twilight Zone. So he's found his new niche, his new the word I'm looking for, um, and he clearly is passionate about moving forward with that. And acting is not something that he finds as pleasing as is directing. So, and that's totally fine. I mean, interests change all the time. And as I said, I do believe that Peele wanted to be a director first before he became an actor. I believe that that's what he really wanted to do. Um, so to see that he's now getting that further opportunity to do such thing, that's great. And I'm very happy that he's getting the chance to do so and producing, in my particular opinion, some fairly good work. And I'm excited to see where else he goes as a filmmaker. So, um, so yeah, I mean, it's not a hard no, but it's definitely far from a yes. Like, we're not going to see a lot of Jordan Peele on screen, but we will still see him, from time to time on screen, providing some stuff there and there. So it's not a like, is he done with acting? Period. No, he's definitely taking a step back, but it's not like he's, you know, closing the curtains or shutting the curtains. You know what I mean? Um, so so yeah. Uh, so yeah, that's the Jordan Peele story. Now, um, let's transition back to the DC universe for a minute, because this story came out, I believe, today. Today being the 6th, and that is of course Ray Fisher. We've been talking about Ray Fisher for quite a bit on this show, and I think I think you guys know my opinion on Ray Fisher with the whole investigation that's been going on. My opinion on that. I think it's fairly documented now on the show. Um, and well, we finally have, I guess, some resolution to all this. Um, which is just to give some backstory. Walter Hamada has now extended his contract this past Tuesday with WB as DC president until 2023. So he's now extended it for the next 2 years. Um, and surprise, surprise, Ray Fisher had some comments about this announcement, and he went on to Twitter to make these comments, which I will read to you right now. Quote, it's weird how these reactionary announcements from WB Pictures always forget to mention that Walter Hamada was working directly with Geoff Johns and Toby Emmerich on Shazam during Justice League reshoots. More soon, accountability greater than entertainment. Hashtag Walter no. So that was made, I want to say yesterday or today, I'm not sure. But with the announcement of Ray Fisher not wanting to be involved in other DC projects, it was made clear today that Ray Fisher will now be written out of The Flash. And just to give clarity, Cyborg is being written out of The Flash, but he will not be recast because there was some rumors going around that Ray Fisher was now going to get recast as Cyborg. That is not the case. He's still Cyborg, but he will be written out of the film. From all accounts, it sounded like it was a cameo. It wasn't like anything big supporting role or anything. It sounded like a very small cameo, presumably like towards the beginning or something. But yes, he will not be a part of the Flash moving forward. But I want to address something that someone brought up that I never realized before about the whole Ray Fisher situation. That is true, and I didn't take it into account. And I kind of want to add it more into my feelings about Ray Fisher with this whole situation. Um, when you're in a situation when you're in a situation where you're talking about abuse on set or just violent acts in general, about stuff that's happened to people, the one thing that we have to see is evidence. We have to see evidence. We have to see something that will, because anybody can say anything online, anybody could say anything in public, um, and it could be completely false. I mean, I can go up right now on the streets and say that um, I was you know uh, done wrong by a company, but if I don't have any proof, then there's not much weight to it. If you look at Ray Fisher's uh, just his track record right now with the whole WB situation and just with his Twitter feed and everything, he hasn't really presented any bit of evidence. Perhaps legally he can't, maybe there's some legal reasons why he can't do that. But then again, it's like, why are you then bashing WB? Maybe he had his contract had expired or something. I don't know. Um, but why bring it public when everything is private? It's like if you're gonna go public about it, bring everything out. Talk about the stuff that happened on set. Bring up photos. Bring up text messages. Bring up all this shit so that the public, if you're gonna make it public, the public wants to know. So, um, so when you don't have any evidence to support your your stuff, it just makes you look pretty bad. And as I said, I think it has an impact on his career almost tremendously. I think that it's going to affect a lot of his future collaborations moving forward. And I also think that it's going to, a lot of the collaborations that he probably has set now are also going to come into question. A lot of these filmmakers are going to probably start having doubts of having Ray Fisher on their project because they have worries about him probably going on social media and slandering the shit out of them because of something that may or may not have happened on their set. It's a sticky situation with Ray Fisher right now, and I mean, all the power to him for him speaking his truth. I say quote because I don't know what is true right now with Ray Fisher with what he's saying, if it is true or not. I do believe that something happened on set. I just don't know to the extent of how he's laid it out. I don't know. I just don't know. So, um, nor does anybody know besides the people who are on that set. So, um, but um, but yeah, it's definitely a blow to his career, and I'm really curious to see how he backtracks from this, if he can. Um, but again, more power to him for him speaking his truth. But again, as we have laid out previously on the last episode, there are definitely consequences to putting out stuff like this and not backing it up. Alrighty, moving on. Oh, sorry if I keep jumping back and forth. There's somebody that just was texting me, so I just had to, so sorry about that. Um, but moving on, we're gonna go into another WB story. Something that I almost guarantee is going to be controversial when it comes out. Is that we have a trailer for a film called Locked Down. Um, to give a synopsis, I'm going to read the official synopsis. Quote, in Locked Down, just as they decided to separate, Linda, played by Anne Hathaway, and Paxton, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, find life has other plans when they are stuck at home in a mandatory lockdown. Cohabitation is proven to be a challenge, but fueled by poetry and copious amounts of wine, it will bring them closer together in the most surprising way. Um, Now, if you watch the trailer and read that synopsis, it kind of gives off two different vibes. So that particular quote kind of feels like, oh, it's going to be like this drama. It's going to be this personal isolated piece, kind of like in the veins of the upcoming Malcolm and Mary, where it's going to probably be set in like two apartments or something. It's not really that. It's actually more or less a story of like in the vein of Ocean's 11. It's a heist film. Um, and funny how I say Oceans because Anne Hathaway was in actually one of the Ocean's movies. So, um, and funny how I also mentioned spy type films because the director is Doug Liman, who famously directed The Bourne Identity. Um, but um, yeah, it has an interesting cast: Chiwetel Ejiofor, Anne Hathaway, Stephen Merchant, Mindy Kaling, Ben Stiller, and Ben Kingsley. And it has a release date of January 14th, so very, very soon, on HBO Max. So I saw the trailer and it looked okay. I'll say that it looked okay. I think that the chemistry between Chiwetel Ejiofor and Anne Hathaway looks promising. I think that at first I was like, that seems like a weird pair up, but they seem okay. Um, my main concern watching the trailer though was this. I sincerely hope that this is not another Songbird because it had a very similar production, which was insanely like fast tracked and did it was basically done on the fly. And I hope that the quality does not um, deviate or become something in the same vein of Songbird was because of that fast production that they had. Um, I also don't want this to become a gimmick in terms of portraying stories under the umbrella of COVID-19. I don't want this to feel like it's becoming a gimmick. Like, oh, look, we shot during COVID. Isn't that cool? Um, I mean, sure, but your project is also kind of weak. Like, I don't want that to be the vessel for filmmakers right now who are thinking about doing stories. I don't want that to be the vessel. I don't want them to be like, oh, look, we shot during COVID, or oh, see, we are talking about we're using COVID as like the backdrop. Like if we're going to address COVID in films, I think that we have to take it a little bit more seriously and not use it as just a backdrop for us just to do a comedy or doing this and that. I want it to be a lot more involved. I want that idea to be a lot more involved in said stories and to feel a lot more impactful for the viewer because the reason why Songbird did not work is because it was so fucking cliche. It was so cliche and it never earned um, its place of being a pandemic-based film. It just felt like a cliche thriller that we've seen thousands of times. But with this, it looks like another typical heist film. So I don't really know how I feel about them using the backdrop, using COVID-19 as a backdrop, when in all actuality, I mean, you could have just done a heist film. You don't really need COVID in there. Um, and that's why I also state that films like this, regardless of how the quality is, also, whether it's great or it's bad, it's going to be divisive no matter what because everybody is in on it. I've said that when I reviewed Songbird. Everybody's in on this. Everybody knows about COVID-19. It's not like a select few. It's everybody. Everybody knows about this. Everybody experienced this in their own way. Everybody's seen this play out. I mean, today, I mean, stuff's happened. I mean, I won't get into it, but um, needless to say, we are resulting in manners in our political spectrum that are just, I think, beneath you. I'll just put it that way. Um, I don't agree with doing certain things. I'll just put it that way. I'm not getting political, but I just want to state that I think you all know what's probably happening today, today being the 6th, and last night. Um, but all I'm going to say is that um, I prefer to get passionate, not more than that. Um, so, um, but um, but beyond that though, like it's like basically what I'm trying to summarize is that like everybody in the world has been through this. Everybody in the world is experiencing this. Um, and there is a political side to it. So there's always going to be a political side to this. I mean, any film also that brings up anything in the vein of like COVID-19, there is a political side to it. Um, so a lot about how you view certain things are also going to impact your viewing. I say more or less for COVID just because everyone is involved in this, and they have their own say on how they view COVID. Um, I try not to do that if I'm going to watch a film based on COVID. I mean, I did that with Songbird. I will do that again when I watch films, but that's not the general public. A lot of people are going to view the film differently because of how they portray the virus, which is why Songbird was so fucking divisive when it came out. Um, and I hope that Locked Down just doesn't throw away. I hope they just don't use COVID-19 as an excuse to make certain mechanics more interesting. I hope that that's not the case for Lockdown. Um, but we'll see though. I mean, it comes out. Fuck, when does it come out? It comes out next Thursday, not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. But um, all right. Let's bring it on another WB story. We got two more WB stories, and then I got one more really weird story. Um, the Suicide Squad is now rated R. That's cool. James Gunn had confirmed this on Twitter by fan response. Um, so yes, the Suicide Squad is officially rated R. That is cool. Really happy to hear that it's rated R. Not super surprised that it's rated R because it felt like it was leaning towards that place. My question now, I have a question now that pops in my head immediately, and probably a lot of people's, this same question probably popped up on a lot of people's heads as well, was, is the Batman rated R? Now, we've asked this question before, and at first I would have said no, and then I saw the trailer and I was like, maybe. Um, but now with this announcement, I think it's actually more plausible that it's going to be rated R. I actually think that it's more plausible. I don't think it will be, but I think it has more meat on the bone, um, because I think that Joker gave the studio some confidence to produce this edgier content, and from seeing dailies and stuff, obviously when Joker was being produced, I think that it gave them more confidence to move forward with said projects. Um, so perhaps the Batman is rated R. Maybe it's one of those edgier pieces that they were talking about, like Walter Hamada was stating. Um, Maybe that's one of them, um, but it is cool to hear that it's R rated. I'm happy to hear that, and it opens the door for a little bit more free reign, for a little bit more, how should I say it, a little bit more different comedic approaches and some, more more violence, obviously on screen, to some more, how should you say it, exaggerated violence. Um, but Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but I'm happy to hear that it's R-rated. Um, and I think it gives more plausibility to the Batman being rated R. So there's that. Now let's talk about Wonder Woman 1984. We have an update on the second weekend of how the film is performing, and domestically, needless to say, it's dropped significantly. On the second weekend numbers, it dropped 67% domestically at the box office. And we have the international numbers here as well. So domestically, on its second weekend, it performed and did 5.5 million. Internationally, it did 10.1 million, and that brings that weekend worldwide overall to 15.6 million. And now adding it up to the worldwide box office, it now pits Wonder Woman 1984 at $118 million. Um, which, mind you, Wonder Woman 1984, what costs like a shit ton of money, and I will bring up again what that number was, just for you guys to understand where I'm coming from with my thoughts. It costs around 200 million. So yeah, uh, yeah, I keep saying it time and time again. I'm gonna repeat it again. This HBO Max idea was not a great idea. I mean, it could still prove to work. I mean, it could very much prove so to work, but these numbers just don't spell out much promise. It looks pretty bad. I don't want to hear the whole, what is it? The whole, oh, well, for COVID, it's pretty great. I mean, yeah, if you're wanting to view it as a COVID thing, then yeah, it looks great. But from just normal box office take, this is pretty bad. But then again, as I said before, with the whole HBO Max situation, I don't know what else you could have done, um, to have given that film a proper release and to have given it the box office that it could have generated. Because that movie could have made all the money. It could have made all the money last year. Um, but it didn't because of, COVID, obviously. But these numbers are not good. I mean, I don't get why outlets are coming out saying like these numbers are amazing. I mean, yeah, I mean they're the biggest numbers we've had in a while, but they don't amount to anything for Wonder Woman 1984. They really don't. So I don't understand why people are out here saying this stuff. I mean, analysts have even said like, yeah, guys, these numbers are shit. So so I don't understand where that mentality is coming from. But yeah, just to provide an update where Wonder Woman 1984 is at, it dropped significantly the second weekend, which is not surprising at all. Um, so yeah, this movie is going to lose a lot of money. It's going to lose a lot of money as we assumed it would. Um, and not surprising at all, considering, you know, just how this hybrid release thing is going, and just, you know, it's not going to make Tenet's numbers. It's not going to. I really don't believe at this point it will make Tenet's numbers. Tenet did it did way better. It did like 300 million, which it's still, at the end of the day, is still not great for that film. Should have generated a lot more money. Um, but for the time we're living in, it was fair enough. Um, but for Wonder Woman, I don't see this thing making 200. I don't know. I really don't think so, especially domestically how it's dropped. And internationally, I mean, 10 million. I mean, I don't know. I really don't think this movie is gonna make 200 million or even hit that number. But that's just me. We'll see. We'll see how. Maybe the third weekend will spike. But seeing how traditionally the box office works, that's not really likely to happen. So okay. I have two more stories. I actually said one more story, but I actually forgot I had one more story. Um, one of them is a news story. One of them is kind of like a history type story. Um, so we'll talk about the funny story first. The thing that was like, okay, do you guys like the Rubik's cube? You guys like the Rubik's cube, the little Rubik's cube? That little piece, that little square piece. Um, well, I hope you do because apparently it's getting a movie. Apparently the Rubik's Cube is getting a movie of some sorts. Why? It's like I don't really know what the purpose is for doing a Rubik's Cube movie at first, but upon thinking about it more about what a Rubik's Cube movie is probably going to be, it's more than likely a biopic about like the creator or something, kind of in the same vein as that Tetris movie that they're doing. That Tetris movie that they're doing with I think it's like with Taron Egerton, I believe. So I think it's more or less going to be that, but it's still funny to hear that they're doing a Rubik's Cube movie. It just sounds funny on paper. It's just like, you know what our new movie is going to be? It's going to be about the Rubik's Cube. um, but then again, everyone laughed when they heard that we were going to get the McDonald's movie, which ended up being The Founder, which I actually quite liked. So stuff on paper sounds funny, but once you see it play out, you're like, oh, there's a bigger reason why they're doing this. They're not just putting a fucking cube on screen for like 2 hours, which that would be hilarious. If it was just the cube, that'd be hilarious. But that's not the case here. Um, but um, but yeah, funny little story just to throw in there that Rubik's Cube movie is happening. So for any of you Rubik's fans, you're getting to get your film. So um, all right, so now we're gonna end this episode with a little bit of a interesting story that came out. It's nothing that pertains to the new stuff that's going on, but just an interesting story nonetheless. And that is something to do with Fox, with the Fox X-Men series. Um, which is this. Fox apparently at one point or another was going to do X-Men versus Fantastic Four. Um, this idea was being discussed in 2011, and apparently Paul Greengrass, yes, the man who did the Bourne Ultimatum and the Bourne Supremacy, and then the other Bourne movies, obviously. He also has a new film coming out right now called News of the World with Tom Hanks, which I really wanted to see, but with COVID, obviously, it's kind of a limited release. Um, I guess he was in talks at the time to helm the project. Um, but he confirmed to Sci-Fi Wire, I think that's where the story broke, that talks didn't really lead anywhere. It was just all talk, basically. But the interesting thing to note about this idea was that Deadpool and Daredevil were originally a part of this idea. Now, keep in mind this was in 2011. They were coming off of X-Men Origins, so I'm not sure if Ryan Reynolds would have been involved at this time. But Charlie Cox was clearly not going to be involved. And also, if you also take into consideration the 2016 Fantastic Four film, Fanforstic, as we all call it, that cast was not assembled either. So this would have looked a lot different. Now, how it would have fit in the timeline, the quote-unquote timeline, because if you know how the X-Men films play out, there's really no timeline to begin with. It's just kind of after, I would say, the third movie or Days of Future Past, everything kind of just went out the window. Um, but um, it's interesting to know that that was actually an idea, that they were actually looking to do that. Why they didn't move forward with it, I mean, probably budgeting reasons. Probably just they just didn't feel like they were ready to put something out there that way. I'm pretty sure that they were leading towards it as well. They're probably thinking like, you know what, let's build this up a little bit, rather than just spitting it out. Um, so probably they were looking to build up, and then with all the, I would say, the mixed responses that the X-Men films got beyond that, beyond 2011. We had Days of Future Past, which got great reviews, and I really liked Days of Future Past. Then we had Apocalypse, which was fairly mixed. Deadpool, which was great. Deadpool 2, which was fun. Logan, which was very good. But a lot of their team up films did not. Van Forstick obviously shit the bed. Um, and I think that that was kind of their way, their signal, and their kind of their their answer to why this probably didn't happen is because their team up films were not received well. Their solo projects were received very well, so they probably changed direction. And they were like, you know what, let's not do this versus movie anymore. So that's probably why the idea kind of fell on its face. But it's interesting to know that that was an actual idea, that that was actually something that they were wanting to do, and that it would have been a possibility if, imagine if these movies actually turned out as great as Days of Future Past, or like a Logan or a Deadpool, like what if Apocalypse was a great film? What if Dark Phoenix was a great film? What if The New Mutants was a great film? Like what would have had led to, or also obviously the big reason why this probably didn't move forward was also because of the Disney Fox merger that also happened as well when Disney bought Fox. This probably also killed the idea. So many factors, but more or less probably because when Disney bought Fox, they were just like, okay, kind of cut this idea. Um, and also probably because of this of the success that came with it, came with the X-Men movies after 2011. They probably were just like, okay, let's kind of throw this out. So, but it's interesting to know it was almost done. It was at least in talks. Still there were discussions being made, so it wasn't like in pre-production or anything. But it was interesting to know that that idea was still being discussed. So, and with Deadpool and Daredevil, I mean that's very interesting to know. Deadpool I understand, but Daredevil it's kind of interesting why they would throw him in there. Um, but at the time also like the Daredevil series wasn't a thing, so I'm curious like would they have incorporated like Ben Affleck or something? I don't know what would have been with the Daredevil situation or with Deadpool because I remember Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool in the X-Men Origins was not well received in the slightest. So I don't know what would have happened with Deadpool if they moved forward with that film. Um, because likely that film would have come out if they fast tracked it like 2013, 2014. Um, like would that have subbed out for Days of Future Past? Like I'm not sure where that would have fit in the timeline, um, but it's interesting to know that it was still an idea. It was still something that was in the works. It was something that or was at least being talked about, but ultimately due to the future success that came with it, the X-Men franchise, and of course with the Disney Fox merger, that's how this idea was ultimately dead or killed. So, um, but that is pretty much it for today, guys. I mean, I thought it would be a longer episode, but no, looks like we just made 48 minutes. So, um, that is pretty much it for this episode. Hope you guys are uh, enjoying these news episodes. I will try to get a name for them. If you guys can figure out a name for them, also let me know. Maybe I'll use a name from one of you guys. But um, we talked about a lot of things today, so you guys let me know your thoughts about all this stuff. And hopefully, you guys are being safe. Don't go out like I did. That was stupid. Um, wear your mask, be social distance, wash your hands productively, and take it seriously, guys. Take it seriously. Even though I didn't get COVID, I still got a little funky, so it's good to be informed and protected. So, you know, um, so stay safe, be protected, and just let me know your thoughts about all these topics and give me a name for this. Maybe I'll figure out a name for this little news selection thing. And my worst of 2020 will be the next video, so look out for that video. So, thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.